that brings me to another point from an article that I wrote a couple months ago about trauma experienced from socio-political upheaval on the national and global level, of course, which we're experiencing on multiple fronts here and elsewhere. The rapid rise of all these quasi-fascists like Marine Le Pen in France, and some would even say Donald Trump here in the United States. I wrote this article because I came to realize that there really is a trauma that people are experiencing. One of the people that I cited in the article was a medical doctor who had the same clients for 10 years or more, and she said now those clients who she'd been treating for diabetes and high blood pressure and very typical things for middle-aged people, that many of them now are coming in and she's spending more time talking with them about emotional and mental health issues because they're afraid of what's going to happen in the world. She's spending more time. She's a medical doctor, and she's spending more time on this, and she's never seen this before with, in her career. So you're talking about this thing about traumatization from sort of social insecurity, right? Which is and so also too from a historical perspective because you're talking about these veterans trying to recover from all of this combat trauma, and then it's constantly being stirred up over and over again. One of the things in my research for this article um, is came up that after World War II, uh, and of course all of the information about the Holocaust came out, um, those Jewish people who survived were then dependent upon a medical system that still had a lot of Nazis in it, because all the Nazis didn't just disappear. And
Right.
so they were dependent upon often the very people who had tried to
Cause the trauma.
exactly these doctors, right? Because there were doctors as well that were involved, many in Nazism, not everybody, but it was the whole, every facet of the population was affected by this. And so um, this author of a new book, Dagmar Herzog, she's one of the people that I was interviewing. She wrote a book called Cold War Freud, and she was looking about psychoanalysis in the age of catastrophe. And she was, telling me this whole thing about how this re-traumatization, and actually, it is because of those traumatized Jews who later banded, decades later, banded together with veterans of the Korean and Vietnam War, where the diagnosis of PSD it came out of those three groups of people.
Mm-hmm.
So uh, there's that. Now the question is to you is does it surprise you, right? This data has come out from the Department of Veteran Affairs that about 20 veterans per day commit suicide.
Yes. I'm glad you brought that. I'm glad you brought that up. Check this out. At 17 years old, you volunteer coming out of high school, and anyone listening to this, imagine yourself at 17 years old, you decided to join the military in whatever branch, Army, Navy, Marines, Air Force, or the Coast Guard, which they don't call the military Department of Transportation, but they military to me. So you join the branch of service like I did the Marine Corps, and they send you off to wherever. You go off into the military, get your training, boot camp, Paris Island, San Diego, or in the Army, wherever you go, Fort Bliss, wherever. But you go off to training, and you volunteer to do this for your country because, say these guys that did it September 11 because they joined the military because of that. And then you go off at the young age of 19, 20 years old, and you're in combat. So they tell the guys is in now. They fight for 4 years. Come back, they do another 4 years or whatever, or they get out of the military, but now you're at the point where you just got injured. You got shot, you stepped on a landmine, or you have a mental problem. Now, imagine yourself now, you're in the middle of this career, and you think about going 20 and retired, and now you got discharged from the military by whatever rank of service you were, and they discharge you at 20% or below. Now you go off to the VA, and you try to get help. Now imagine you in this little whirlpool. You feel like you're in a whirlpool cycle, round, and sending you to this class, that class, hoping you find you, and when you go to get your benefits, it comes back denied. Then you go try it again, and they give you a piece of it. They give you another 10% on that. Imagine you doing that, and all of a sudden now you went out to the division world and try to get a job with A, B, C, D company, and A, B, and C says, you're in the military. Oh yeah, we like to have you. You have they're not allowed to actually have PTSD. But if you come in there walking with a cane and your limb blown off, a lot of these companies, whether they say to you or not, don't want to hire you because they don't want you sitting up in IBM, AT&T, or whatever. Excuse me for using those names. Cross those names out. But company A, company B, and company C, they don't want you sitting up in the middle of their thing thinking you might go off like a hand grenade. So you don't get a job. The next thing you know, you put for your benefits. You can't get your benefits. So you already have a psychological problem that drives you deeper. Now you're homeless. You go out for benefits, you still can't get your daggone rating or your benefits. You can't get a job on the outside. What is the last thing that leads you to? Suicide.
Wow. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Look at it that way.
Well, yeah. I can understand why a person would find themselves feeling like that's a viable, well, perhaps not a viable option, but an option that's on the table.
You feel betrayed by your country.
Yeah, you feel betrayed by your country. You feel betrayed by your neighborhood.
Well, one thing about it, Max, I'm going to tell you, if you go into the military promises you that, if you do 20 years, you're going to be taking care of the rest of your life, or you do 4 years. You're going to be taken care of. You're going to have medical. You're going to be taken care of. If you get injured, you're going to be taken care of. Don't worry about it. And they feed you all that. Imagine on your job if you worked in a restaurant at Starbucks. And Starbucks tell you, okay, you got long-term disability, short-term disability, and all of a sudden you get burned and you fall and you had to retire. Even at a young age, especially, or old age, you retire. And all of a sudden you find out that Starbucks got lawyers now, or whatever this company AB, got lawyers telling you you can't get your benefits. How are you going to feel? You can't work because you're disabled. You can't get benefits because they're fighting you left and right. I know that from experience because the company that I work for, I got in a bad car accident while I was working. I had to retire, and they yanked all of my benefits from me. I did attempt suicide because I had a problem with the military, with PTSD, and this stuff on me. So I was getting it from both edges, from the military and from the civilian world. And here I was a veteran. I felt betrayed, and I attempted suicide.
And fortunately, you did not succeed.
Well, fortunately, thank God I didn't. I'm just saying.
You understand. Yeah.
Not strong enough. Some of the other, put it this way, the other 19 that particular month wasn't strong enough to make it through what I did. They didn't have someone to pull them back before they pulled the trigger. Put it that way.
Yeah, that's true. Because
I could have been one of those statistics too, and it's for that same thing. And even as much as you talk about it, and you're going to write about it, it's going to go out there. A lot of people will take it in, but the people that really need it, they look at it with deaf ears because
I think so much of this, Greg, I think so much of this is just not known. Fortunately, I've had the privilege of knowing you, and as I have a brother that was in the reserves for a few decades, and but really from knowing you mostly because you have such an incredible service record in the Marines. Then you were a fireman, a policeman, and just really gave your entire adult life to this nation. And you really have an incredible insight from so many angles with this. The next thing I wanted to ask you about to sort of segue, we're talking about veterans, but you have both experience in the world of the military, but also in civilian life. And, in the past, we talked about, in a prior interview that I did with you, we talked some about police brutality and the things happening in this country with unarmed black men being killed by the police. I think there is a false impression that because African Americans are so vocal about police brutality and other forms of documented and perceived injustice, it seems to create this correlation that African Americans are not loyal to the U.S. or that we don't care about this nation. But I want to read you some statistics from the Pew Research Center, which seems to refute that. As the country has become more racially and ethnically diverse, so has the U.S. military. Racial and ethnic minority groups make up 40% of the Defense Department active duty military in 2015, up from 25% in 1990. In the same year, blacks made up 17% of the Defense Department's active duty military, higher than their share of the population of 18 to 44-year-olds, which is 13%. So how does that happen? You got all of these black people serving in the military, and yet there seems to be this perception that blacks are disloyal to this country, or somehow African Americans don't quite love this country as much as white Americans.
Yeah, I don't know where that perception comes. We love this country probably more than most people because we built this country. We built this country. From the inception of this country came from the blood, sweat, and tears of our ancestors, my ancestors, your ancestors. We love this country. And it's our country. I don't know where they get that perception from. We love this country. And I love the military. And I still love the military.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know any black I ever spoke to that said he didn't love America. Greatest country on earth.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have the greatest leaders on earth. We could. But look what we got in that White House now.
Yeah. And this of course brings my final point, which is African Americans who ally themselves with individuals like Trump. I'm thinking specifically right now of David Clark, who Trump just gave a really nice position within the Department of Homeland Security. This is an African American who compares Black Lives Matters to the Islamic Caliphate. Says people who African Americans who speak up against police brutality are trying to destroy this country, that they're allied with Middle East terrorists to destroy the United States.
I take David Clark and put him back to the other article I think you wrote. What was it? Something with a black face?
Well, the black face of white supremacy. Yeah.
There you go. There you go. That's David Clark for you. That's David Clark. Don't get me started on David Clark. And I'm a retired police officer. Don't get me started on David Clark.
Yeah. Well, it seems incredibly. The degree of cynicism that of all the African Americans that could have been appointed in that position, someone like David Clark gets appointed.
Of course, because David Clark is a yes man to their agenda. It's just like Trump wants to sign bills to clamp down on black neighborhoods. Go back to the stop and frisk of New York City, Trump wants that all over the country. David Clark is a yes man to Trump and the National Rifle Association.
And it's interesting to me, not particularly shocking, but the Southeast gets the reputation of being the most racist and the most backwards, but Trump is from New York City, and so is Rudolph Giuliani, who implemented stop and frisk in Manhattan, in New York City.
Absolutely, good point, excellent point, excellent point.
So, I mean, it tells me that there's still quite a bit of denial around the nationalist ideology of racism. This false assumption that it's a Southern thing, when in fact, Giuliani is a New Yorker and Trump is a New Yorker.
That's right.
Is there something that we haven't covered? Is there something that I haven't brought up that you think would be relevant to this conversation before we close?
Healthcare. I've been in the healthcare system for a very long time, and the veteran healthcare system is not a bad system. I mean, you hear about a lot of things going bad in veterans hospitals because they don't have the instruments and things that they need. Or the care up there, they give very good care. It's just they can't give good care to the vast numbers that they have.
Right, and that's really a funding issue that's coming out of the federal government, out of the White House and the federal government.
Right. And then you see that Trump, I don't know, you can turn it on anytime you want to, but you can see that President Trump is cutting food programs for food shelters. The food that goes to food shelters, he's cutting that. He's cutting, I forgot how many billions that's coming out from the Social Security in different areas, just so that the vast majority of that, 54 billion or something like that, is going to the military to build ships, planes, and bombs. But he's still not a penny of that is going to the ratings for the actual soldiers that's doing the fighting.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that because I have here from Military Times magazine a little piece about budget cuts. Veteran Affairs officials on Wednesday defended plans to strip tens of thousands of dollars in unemployment benefits from elderly veterans as responsible reform to the department's growing budget, but opponents promised to fight the idea. Included in President Trump's $185 billion VA budget for 2018, and nearly there's a boost in discretionary spending, which goes to actually it's a form of privatization because it's taking money out of it's money allocated for the VA that does not actually go to the VA. And our plans to dramatically cut the department's individual unemployability program. Up to 225,000 veterans over the age of 60, at least 7,000 individuals, of whom are over 80, could be impacted by the change.
Now, do you know what the unemployability, these veterans that their ratings, they won't rate them. They say they rate them at 80, 90%. But because of their injuries, it doesn't stack up with their things of saying that, you don't rate no more than 90. You can now file for this thing called unemployability, which has been there a long time. Meaning that you're not able to work because you have PTSD or you're missing limbs. You cannot actually go out and keep a gainful job. So you can file unemployability, meaning that you're not rated at 100%, but you're paid at 100%. So Donald Trump is trying to get rid of that. You're not rated. You're not rated because you don't deserve it because of your injuries. Your injuries might be 120, 130%. But they're rating you because of the way that paperwork is saying you got to have this and that. It's like a jigsaw puzzle if you look at how they rate your injuries. So when you file unemployability, he gets rid of that. It's going to be a lot of veterans going to be in trouble. It's sad. But do you see where the vast majority of his money is going to? It's going to defense. Why? Because he's got to pay back all these defense contractors that spent millions and millions of dollars getting him elected. Lockheed Martin, General Dynamics, the tank builders, the bomb builders. You got to replace all those Tomahawk missiles he just shot over there. So that's where all this money is going to, is batting up these contractors. He calls that jobs. Yeah, it's jobs for people to make tanks and bombs, but that's temporary.
Well, Sergeant Floyd, it has been a pleasure again and an honor to speak with you and to hear more of your clear insight on what's happening in this nation, and specifically what's happening with people like yourself who gave their lives to defend and protect this country and now find themselves in rather precarious circumstances. Thank you.
Washing machine.
Thank you so much for your time.